It was a crowded afternoon on the city bus, the kind of ride where every seat was taken and strangers sat shoulder to shoulder, avoiding eye contact. Among the passengers was a young black teenager, tired from a long day at school, clutching his backpack tightly. When the bus jerked to a stop, a pregnant white woman stepped inside. Her hands resting on her stomach, looking around for a place to sit. No one moved. People kept their heads down, pretending not to notice. But the boy didn't hesitate. Without a word, he stood up and offered her his seat, a simple act of kindness that caught her off guard. She smiled, thanked him softly, and lowered herself into the seat he had given up. To him, it was nothing more than the right thing to do. But for her it meant so much more. As the bus rolled on, she slipped a folded note into his hand. He looked down, surprised, not knowing what it could be. The words inside would change everything he thought he knew about his life, his future, and even his past. What was written in that note would leave him stunned. And it was only the beginning. The boy's heart raced as he held the small folded paper in his palm, unsure if he should open it right there on the bus or wait until later. He slipped it carefully into his pocket, trying not to draw attention. His mind kept wandering. Why would a stranger give him a note for something as ordinary as kindness? The ride home suddenly felt longer, every turn of the wheels echoing his curiosity. He glanced once at the woman, who only looked out the window, her hand protectively resting on her belly, as if she hadn't just handed him something that would shake his world. When he finally got off at his stop, he walked slowly, his backpack heavy on his shoulders, his thoughts heavier still. He lived with his grandmother in a small apartment, a place filled with love but not much else. Life had never been easy, but he learned to keep moving forward. As he stepped through the front door, he pulled out the note again, staring at it under the dim light of the hallway. The paper was creased, the handwriting neat and careful. Taking a deep breath, he unfolded it, not yet ready for the truth that was about to unfold. His fingers trembled as he read the first line of the note, and his breath caught in his chest. It wasn't just a thank you, it was personal, far too personal for a stranger to know. The words hinted at his past, something about his family, something he had never been told before. The boy blinked, rereading the lines to make sure he wasn't imagining it. His grandmother had always been his world, raising him since he was little, but she never spoke much about his parents. The note seemed to carry a secret, one that connected him to the woman on the bus in ways he could not yet understand. That night, as he sat at the kitchen table pretending to do homework, his thoughts circled back to her. Who was she? Why would she know things about him that no one else outside his family should? He thought of asking his grandmother, but the weight of the mystery kept him silent. At school the next day he couldn't focus. His best friend noticed his distracted look, but he brushed it off. The note burned in his pocket, like a puzzle piece that didn't yet fit. Somewhere between fear and hope. He knew this was only the beginning of something much bigger. Days passed, but the note never left his pocket or his mind. Each time he unfolded it, he found new weight in the words, a hidden meaning that seemed to whisper there was more he didn't know. The line spoke of a truth long kept in silence, and urged him to ask the woman with the kind eyes. But she hadn't signed her name, and he had no way of finding her again. The mystery grew heavier, pressing down on him until it followed him into his sleep. He would wake in the middle of the night, staring at the ceiling, wondering what connection this stranger had to his life. One evening, his grandmother noticed his unease. She asked gently if something was wrong, her eyes full of concern, but he couldn't bring himself to show her the note. Something inside told him she already knew, and that thought scared him even more. The next day, as he boarded the bus, his heart pounded when he spotted her again, the same pregnant woman seated near the window. Their eyes met briefly, and she gave the faintest nod, as if expecting him. His hands shook as he stepped closer, the world narrowing to that single moment. What she was about to reveal could shatter everything he believed about his past. He stood frozen in the aisle, the hum of the bus fading as if time itself had slowed. The pregnant woman motioned for him to sit beside her, her expression serious, almost urgent. When he finally lowered himself into the seat, she leaned closer and whispered words that made his chest tighten. She said she wasn't just thanking him. She was connected to his family in a way that went back years, long before he was born. He wanted to ask more, but before he could speak, she pressed another folded paper into his hand. This time, her eyes glistened and her voice trembled as she said, "Don't show this to anyone yet. Not even your grandmother." His pulse quickened. Why would she say that? The woman got off at the next stop, leaving him staring out the window, desperate for answers. That night, he opened the second note, and what he read made him sit bolt upright. It mentioned a name he had never heard before, tied directly to his mother's past, a name his grandmother had never spoken. The message hinted at secrets buried deep, secrets that could explain why his life had always felt incomplete. Suddenly, he realized this wasn't just about kindness on a bus. Someone had been keeping the truth from him, and now it was finally breaking through the surface. The boy couldn't carry the weight of the secret any longer. One evening, with his hands shaking, he finally placed both notes on the kitchen table in front of his grandmother. Her face went pale the moment she saw them. She sat down heavily, her silence louder than any words. After a long pause, she admitted the truth. His mother had once been close friends with the woman on the bus. They had shared more than friendship. His mother had trusted her with something she never told anyone else. Tears welled in his grandmother's eyes as she confessed that his mother had left behind unanswered questions, and the woman he'd met was the last living link to those truths. The next day, he found the woman again, determined to know everything. Sitting across from her, he braced himself as she revealed the truth, that she was not a stranger at all, but his mother's sister. She had been searching for him quietly, waiting for the right moment to step into his life. His heart raced as the puzzle pieces fell into place. But before relief could settle, she added one final twist. "You're not the only one," she whispered. "There's someone else, someone who's been looking for you too." And with that, his world shifted once again. His breath caught as the woman's words echoed in his mind. "You're not the only one." For a moment, he thought he had misheard, but the serious look in her eyes told him she meant every word. She explained that after his mother passed, secrets had been buried to protect him. His grandmother had raised him quietly, keeping him away from questions that could open old wounds. But the truth was too big to stay hidden forever. His mother had another child, a brother, someone he had never met, someone who had been living a completely different life, not even knowing he existed. The boy sat in silence, trying to absorb the weight of it all. The notes, the whispers, the long stares, they all made sense now. The woman, his aunt, had been carrying the burden of truth for years, unsure of how to reach out. Meeting him on that bus wasn't an accident. It was her chance to finally tell him what he deserved to know. She handed him one last folded piece of paper, this one with an address written in careful handwriting. "If you're ready," she said softly, "this is where you'll find him." That night, he lay awake staring at the ceiling, torn between fear and excitement. His grandmother sat quietly at his side, holding his hand. She finally admitted that she had kept the secret to shield him from pain, but now she understood he needed the truth. With her blessing, he decided to go. When he arrived at the address a few days later, his heart pounded harder than ever before. He stood frozen at the doorstep, then knocked. The door opened slowly, and standing there was a boy about his age, with features so familiar it felt like looking into a mirror. Neither of them spoke at first. They didn't need to. The silence was filled with recognition, with questions that didn't need answers right away. Finally, his brother gave a shy smile and simply said, "I think we've both been waiting for this." The two spent hours talking, sharing pieces of their lives, discovering how different and yet how similar they were. The missing part of his story was no longer missing. For the first time he felt whole. His aunt, sitting quietly nearby, watched with tears in her eyes, knowing the risk she had taken to reveal the truth was worth it. Looking back, the boy realized it had all started with a simple act of kindness, giving up a seat on a crowded bus. That moment had opened the door to his real family, his real story, and a future bigger than anything he had imagined. It was a reminder that even the smallest choices can lead to life-changing moments. As he walked home later, he carried not just the memory of that bus ride, but the lesson it left behind. Compassion had brought him answers, family had given him strength, and truth had given him freedom. And with that, his journey was no longer about what he didn't know. It was about what he was finally ready to embrace.